The public conversation about appetite has become centered on one hormone and one class of medicines. That attention is understandable. GLP-1 receptor agonists have changed the treatment of type 2 diabetes and obesity, and for many patients, they can be medically appropriate, evidence-based tools. But there is another part of the story that receives far less attention. Your digestive tract already produces GLP-1, and the amount and timing of that signal are influenced by what you eat, how food is structured, how active you are, and how consistently you live. This does not mean a bowl of oats can imitate a prescription injection. It cannot. Lifestyle strategies generally produce smaller, shorter, more variable changes than medication. The goal of this video is not to create a natural Ozempic, persuade anyone to stop treatment, or blame people whose hunger remains difficult to control. The goal is to understand the biology you already have and use it more intelligently. Many people assume hunger is simply a test of discipline. They eat a highly processed meal, feel hungry again soon afterward, and conclude that their willpower is defective. In reality, appetite is regulated by a network involving the stomach, intestine, pancreas, liver, brain, nervous system, muscles, sleep cycle, and gut microbes. GLP-1 is one messenger within that network. When the system receives a meal that is rapidly digested, low in fiber, easy to consume, and disconnected from normal meal timing, the signals of fullness may be weaker or shorter than expected, even when the calorie total is high. Over the next several minutes, I will show you a practical framework for supporting your body's own meal-related GLP-1 response. We will examine intestinal L cells, fermentable fiber, resistant starch, protein, dietary fat, food order, movement, and daily timing. More importantly, we will separate promising physiology from exaggerated internet claims because understanding the limits of the evidence is part of using the evidence well. There is also a psychological reason this matters. When a hormone becomes famous, people begin treating every appetite problem as though it has one missing switch. They search for one drink, one spice, or one food combination that supposedly raises GLP-1 enough to erase hunger. That framing is attractive because it offers control, but it can become misleading. Endogenous GLP-1 is released as part of a coordinated meal response, not as an isolated miracle event. Its effects overlap with stretch signals from the stomach, other intestinal hormones, the nutrient content of the meal, learned food cues, stress, sleep, and energy needs. So the real question is not, which food gives me the biggest GLP-1 spike? The better question is, which repeatable pattern improves satiety, glucose handling, digestive tolerance, and overall nutrition without creating unnecessary risk? That is the standard we will use. We will keep what is biologically plausible, discard what is overstated, and build a plan that can coexist with proper medical care. I am Dr. Jason Kim. Before we dive into the science, please take a brief moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone you care about. Your continued support allows this channel to grow faster than I ever imagined, and it empowers me to keep producing these in-depth, scientifically grounded health guides for as many people as possible. Thank you so much for being part of this community. To understand why these strategies may help, begin with the incretin effect. When glucose is swallowed, the insulin response is usually greater than when a comparable amount of glucose reaches the bloodstream without passing through the digestive tract. That difference tells us the gut is not merely plumbing. It detects incoming nutrients and communicates with the pancreas and brain. Two major incretin hormones are GIP and GLP-1. GLP-1 is produced from the proglucagon gene in specialized enteroendocrine cells, commonly called L cells. These cells are present along the intestine, with greater numbers toward the lower small intestine and colon. After a meal, they respond to nutrients, digestive products, bile acids, microbial metabolites, neural signals, and signals released from other parts of the gut. Once released, active GLP-1 has several relevant effects. It can enhance insulin secretion when glucose is elevated, reduce inappropriate glucagon secretion, slow gastric emptying in some circumstances, and contribute to communication between the gut and brain that influences fullness. The phrase, "when glucose is elevated," matters. Endogenous GLP-1 participates in glucose-dependent regulation. It is not simply an appetite-off switch. Natural GLP-1 is also short-lived. The enzyme DPP-4 rapidly breaks down much of the active hormone, so its circulating half-life is measured in minutes. Long-acting GLP-1 medicines were engineered to resist rapid breakdown or remain active for longer periods. That is one reason their clinical effects can be much stronger and more sustained than the brief pulses produced after food. This distinction protects us from a common mistake. Supporting endogenous GLP-1 is not pharmacologically equivalent to taking a receptor agonist. A meal cannot be expected to reproduce the same exposure, weight loss effect, or glucose-lowering effect. Yet, improving meal quality can still matter because the same behaviors influence several systems at once: gastric emptying, glucose absorption, insulin demand, gut fermentation, muscle glucose uptake, energy density, and subjective satiety. Now picture the digestive tract as a long sensing surface rather than a hollow pipe. Highly refined carbohydrates can be broken down and absorbed relatively quickly. By contrast, intact plant structures, viscous fibers, resistant starches, protein, and fat change the rate and location at which digestive products appear. Some nutrients stimulate upper intestinal signals, others reach farther down. Fermentable material can travel into the colon, where microbes convert part of it into short-chain fatty acids. The three best-known short-chain fatty acids are acetate, propionate, and butyrate. They are produced when intestinal microbes ferment carbohydrates that human digestive enzymes cannot fully break apart. These compounds do many things, and their effects depend on dose, location, microbial community, and the health of the host. Laboratory and animal research shows that short-chain fatty acids can activate receptors on enteroendocrine cells and influence GLP-1 and peptide YY secretion. Human studies are promising but less uniform, so butyrate should not be described as a guaranteed hormonal master key. That nuance does not make fiber unimportant. It makes the reason for using fiber more realistic. Fermentable fiber can support microbial metabolism. Viscous fiber can slow nutrient movement and absorption. Intact, fiber-rich foods usually require more chewing and are less energy-dense than highly processed alternatives. Together, these properties can improve the context in which fullness signals are generated. The first practical category is resistant starch. Resistant starch is starch that escapes digestion in the small intestine and becomes available for fermentation farther down the gut. Different forms occur naturally in legumes, less ripe bananas, certain whole grains, and foods made with high amylose starch. Cooking and cooling potatoes, rice, pasta, or other starchy foods can also increase a retrograded form of resistant starch, although the amount varies by food, cooking method, cooling time, storage, and reheating. This is where online advice often becomes too dramatic. A cooled potato does not stop containing digestible carbohydrate, and it does not become a medication. Cooling may modestly increase the resistant fraction and may reduce the glucose response in some meals, but portion size and the total meal still matter. Reheating does not automatically erase all resistant starch, and there is no universal kitchen temperature that guarantees a specific hormonal result. A reasonable experiment is simple. Prepare a familiar starch safely, cool it promptly in the refrigerator, and use it later as part of a balanced meal. That could mean chilled beans in a salad, leftover rice reheated until steaming, or cooled potatoes served with vegetables and a protein source. Food safety is more important than chasing a biochemical trick. Refrigerate cooked starches promptly, store them correctly, and reheat them thoroughly when appropriate. The second category is viscous soluble fiber, especially beta-glucan from oats and barley. In the digestive tract, viscous fibers form a gel-like environment that can slow the movement and mixing of nutrients. This may blunt the speed of post-meal glucose entry and change gut hormone responses. Steel-cut or rolled oats often preserve more structure than rapidly prepared sweetened oat products, but the label "instant" alone does not determine whether a food is healthy. Added sugar, portion size, processing, and the rest of the meal all matter. The third category includes inulin-type fructans and other prebiotic fibers found in foods such as onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, chicory, Jerusalem artichoke, legumes, and some whole grains. These fibers can be fermented by gut microbes, but tolerance differs greatly. Someone with irritable bowel syndrome may experience substantial bloating or pain from the same fructans another person tolerates well. More fermentation is not always better. Instead of immediately targeting an aggressive fiber number, assess your baseline. Many adults consume less fiber than recommended, but doubling intake overnight can cause gas, cramping, urgency, or constipation. Increase slowly, drink enough fluid unless you have been told to restrict it, and rotate food sources. A gradual progression might involve adding 1 serving of legumes, oats, berries, vegetables, seeds, or a cooled starch rather than introducing several concentrated fiber supplements at once. People with a history of bowel obstruction, intestinal narrowing, severe gastroparesis, active inflammatory bowel disease symptoms, recent gastrointestinal surgery, or unexplained abdominal pain should obtain individualized medical advice before making major fiber changes. Anyone using insulin or medicines that can cause low blood sugar should also monitor carefully when changing meal composition, because improved glucose patterns may alter medication needs. Those adjustments belong with a clinician, not a video. Fiber is only one input. L cells and other gut sensors also respond to protein and products of fat digestion. Protein-rich foods can stimulate several satiety-related hormones, including GLP-1, peptide YY, and cholecystokinin. Although individual responses vary and higher hormone concentrations do not always translate into eating fewer calories later. The practical lesson is not to consume unlimited protein. It is to include an appropriate source of protein in meals rather than building every meal around rapidly digested starch. Dietary fats also stimulate intestinal signaling. During digestion, certain lipid-derived molecules can activate receptors such as GPR119. Extra virgin olive oil can be a useful unsaturated fat within a Mediterranean-style pattern, but it is not a special GLP-1 detonator. Adding large amounts of oil increases calories quickly. A modest portion paired with vegetables, beans, whole grains, fish, eggs, yogurt, tofu, or another suitable protein is more defensible than pouring oil over food to chase a hormone spike. Polyphenol-rich foods deserve a balanced interpretation. Berries, tea, cocoa, herbs, pomegranate, and colorful vegetables can improve dietary quality, but no single pigment reliably produces a pharmaceutical GLP-1 effect. Now combine these ideas into what I call the satiety matrix. A well-structured meal contains volume from vegetables or fruit, an individualized amount of fiber-rich carbohydrate, a meaningful protein source, and a modest amount of unsaturated fat. That structure is digested differently from a meal made primarily of refined flour, sugar, and added fat, even when both meals are described with the same calorie number. Compare a sweetened drink, refined sandwich, and chips with lentil soup, salad, a protein source, and a modest portion of rice. The second pattern cannot guarantee lower hunger, but it offers more chewing, fiber, protein signaling, fermentation, and slower nutrient absorption. Food order may further modify the response. Small controlled trials suggest that eating vegetables and protein before a carbohydrate portion can reduce post-meal glucose excursions compared with eating the carbohydrate first. Some studies also report changes in insulin or incretin hormones. The effect is not magic, and it is not a substitute for overall food quality, but it is practical. Try beginning with non-starchy vegetables or a fiber-rich starter, then eat the protein component and finish with the starchier part of the meal. You do not need to stare at a stopwatch or create anxiety around the plate. The purpose is to slow the early carbohydrate load, not to turn dinner into a medical procedure. For mixed dishes such as stew, soup, tacos, or curry, simply aim for a balanced composition rather than separating every ingredient. Movement provides another layer. During and after physical activity, contracting muscle can take up glucose through mechanisms that are partly independent of insulin. Exercise also changes multiple signaling molecules, and research suggests interleukin-6 released during exercise can participate in GLP-1 regulation. But it would be inaccurate to promise that a hard workout produces a medication-like appetite effect. Some people feel less hungry after intense exercise, others become hungrier later. The most accessible strategy is a brief walk after eating. 10 to 15 minutes of comfortable movement can help reduce the post-meal glucose rise, especially when performed consistently. Walking indoors, light household movement, a stationary cycle, or chair-based activity can all be adapted to ability and medical status. Resistance training and aerobic exercise remain valuable for reasons that extend far beyond GLP-1. They can improve insulin sensitivity, preserve muscle, support cardiovascular fitness, improve function, and assist long-term weight management. Older adults, People with heart or lung disease, those with balance problems, and anyone returning after a long inactive period should select intensity with professional guidance. More intense is not automatically more effective or safer. There is also a timing component, although it is frequently oversold. Glucose tolerance and insulin sensitivity follow daily rhythms, and irregular sleep or eating very late can worsen metabolic control in some people. This does not prove that a specific morning light routine switches on the proglucagon gene, and it does not mean everyone must close the kitchen at an identical hour. A useful target is consistency. Eat meals at roughly predictable times, avoid turning the late evening into a second full eating window, and allow time between the last substantial meal and lying down. Finishing food 2 or 3 hours before bed may also help some people with reflux or sleep comfort. Shift workers, people who require bedtime snacks for medication safety, pregnant individuals, athletes, and those with a history of eating disorders need a more personalized approach. Morning outdoor light can support circadian alignment and sleep timing, which may indirectly help appetite regulation. 10 or 20 minutes outside soon after waking is a reasonable habit when safe, but it is not a direct GLP-1 treatment. Protect your eyes and skin appropriately and do not stare at the sun. Let us turn the science into a 5-part daily framework. Step 1 is the fiber foundation. Include several different plant foods across the day and gradually work toward an intake consistent with your medical needs and dietary guidelines. Prioritize food sources when possible. Vegetables, legumes, oats, barley, fruit, nuts, seeds, and intact whole grains. Diversity matters because different microbes use different substrates. Step 2 is the resistant starch option. Once a day, when it fits your glucose goals and digestion, include a moderate serving of legumes or a cooked and cooled starch. Treat it as one component of the meal, not a free food. If you monitor blood glucose, your own readings can show you whether a particular preparation works well for you. Step 3 is meal structure and sequence. Start with vegetables or another fiber-rich component. Include protein, add a reasonable amount of unsaturated fat, and eat concentrated starch or sweets later rather than first. This can make the meal more filling without requiring severe restriction. Step 4 is post-meal movement. Accumulate 10 to 15 minutes of easy activity after one or more meals. Begin with whatever is sustainable. Consistency across months is more useful than one punishing workout followed by inactivity. Step 5 is circadian consistency. Protect sleep, keep meal timing reasonably regular, and reduce habitual late-night grazing. These habits influence appetite through several pathways, including sleep-related changes in hunger hormones, decision-making, stress, and glucose regulation. Notice what this framework does not include. It does not require a supplement stack, a detox, a continuous glucose monitor for everyone, or a rare superfood. It does not promise that hunger will disappear. Hunger is a normal survival signal. The goal is to make that signal more proportionate, predictable, and easier to interpret. For someone currently using a GLP-1 medication, these behaviors may complement treatment, but they must be adapted to side effects and nutritional needs. Because these medicines can slow gastric emptying and reduce appetite, some patients struggle to consume enough protein, fluid, fiber, or micronutrients. Rapidly increasing bulky fiber when nausea, vomiting, constipation, or severe fullness is already present may make symptoms worse. Work with a prescribing clinician or a registered dietitian rather than forcing a generic protocol. Do not reduce, skip, or stop a prescribed GLP-1 medicine because a meal plan appears to be working. Stopping can lead to renewed appetite, worsening glucose control, or weight regain, and the decision depends on why the medicine was prescribed, what benefits it provides, side effects, cost, and the availability of alternatives. Medication is not a personal failure, and lifestyle is not a moral test. For someone not using medication, the same framework can support general metabolic health, but expectations should remain realistic. A person with severe obesity, diabetes, sleep apnea, endocrine disease, medication-related weight gain, chronic pain, or major food insecurity may need more than meal sequencing and walking. Biology, environment, mental health, finances, and access to care all influence eating. No honest discussion of appetite should erase those realities. Track outcomes that matter instead of chasing a hormone you cannot feel directly. Ask whether meals keep you comfortable for longer, whether energy is steadier, whether constipation or bloating improves, whether post-meal glucose readings are moving in a safer direction, whether you are sleeping better, and whether the routine is realistic enough to repeat. If a strategy creates pain, obsessive restriction, recurrent low blood sugar, or worsening gastrointestinal symptoms, it is not the right strategy in its current form. You can begin tomorrow with one small experiment. At lunch, place vegetables and protein first, include a portion of beans or another fiber-rich carbohydrate, and take a gentle 10-minute walk afterward. Repeat that pattern several times before deciding whether it helps. The body responds to patterns more than isolated hacks. The deeper message is that appetite is not a character flaw. It is an output of a complex control system. GLP-1 is one part of that system, and your daily choices can influence its natural release, but they do so within limits. You are not awakening a dormant organ or manufacturing an injection in your intestine. You are creating conditions that may support clearer communication between food, gut, muscle, pancreas, and brain. This video is for education and cannot diagnose or treat an individual condition. Before making major dietary or exercise changes, speak with a qualified healthcare professional if you have diabetes, take glucose-lowering medication, are pregnant, have kidney disease, have significant gastrointestinal disease, have a history of an eating disorder, or experience unexplained weight loss, persistent vomiting, severe abdominal pain, black or bloody stool, fainting, or recurrent low blood sugar. Urgent or severe symptoms require prompt medical care. Now choose one step. The Fiber Foundation, a balanced cooled starch meal, vegetables and protein first, a post-meal walk, or a consistent evening cutoff. Write down the one you can repeat, not the one that sounds most impressive. Metabolic health is built through reliable signals and sustainable routines, not through fear, shame, or a single miraculous ingredient. Your body already has a sophisticated appetite network. Respect it, support it, and use medical treatment when medical treatment is appropriate. The aim is not independence from every medication at any cost. The aim is informed, durable metabolic care and a relationship with hunger that feels less chaotic and more understandable.